everything.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Man Man Sports Fan podcast. My name is Phil Schultz. I am on time tonight. Very happy to be here on time. I actually was second in the chat. Frem came after me, just so everybody knows that. Here with my guys, Brian Fremming, Christopher Allen Smith. How you doing tonight, boys?
Loving life. Just happy you're here, Phil. A lot of texts back and forth. Just happy your phone's been on tonight, and just happy to see you. So thanks for being here, Phil.
Boys are back in town. Just wanted to say that.
They are. It's great to have you back. I do miss Carl in some way. I mean, he filled in well for you. Filled. See what I did there. But yes, doing well. Got a lot of good stuff to talk about tonight. Can't wait.
I don't miss Carl. Carl, if you're listening to this, we don't miss you that much. But before we get to Carl's picks, which he did crush, by the way, did you guys experience the eclipse totality the other day? Yesterday? Yesterday.
I knew some people that chased it. I did not chase it down in, say Cleveland, Ohio, or Carbondale, Illinois. But I think in Milwaukee area where I'm at, it was I heard it was somewhere around 90% or so, and got a little darkness going. Nothing quite like I think certain areas really got pitch black. Definitely a cool experience. I think the next one's coming up in 2045. I heard. So yeah, just kind of happy I caught this one, and I guess I'll see you in 21 years. I'll see you guys. Hopefully, we're still running this podcast, then I guess.
That'd be huge.
That would be awesome.
I would describe my experience as I came, I saw, I conquered. Went outside, put the glasses on, looked at it for 2 seconds, took the glasses off, went back to work.
Hey, but you bought the hardware.
I borrowed some hardware.
Ooh, there we go. Clutch.
Yeah,
I didn't buy either, Chris. I was with somebody that they gave them to me.
That's right.
Yeah,
there's always someone more prepared than you. That's a good life motto.
I think Carl would have bought them and shared them with us, but maybe not you, Phil, because, well,
I didn't buy the glasses, so I wouldn't have been able to help either of you out. But if we were to put a name of a documentary, Chasing Totality, I just workshopped that. It sounds pretty good. That's actually crazy that you had friends go for that. Like they actually traveled to go to the place. But I watched a video of Dallas, Texas, where it happened. It was nuts. Really, really dark. I couldn't believe it.
It was so nuts cool. That he...
Yeah.
It's good to have you back. We missed you for a few seconds there, Phil.
You were gone again, Phil. We're like, oh, here he goes again.
Did I just cut out?
It's okay, Phil.
You did. The eclipse came over your computer there. But now you're back.
Okay. Wow. I don't know.
Eclipse over your Wi-Fi, I think.
There's so much happening that I am not aware of. Okay, well, let's jump to WrestleMania. Raise your hand. No, that's bad for radio. Just, did you watch WrestleMania at all?
I think everyone knows my answer. They should know my answer. No, I did not watch. I followed, of course. Saw a lot of good highlights, some good pictures. And I thought of each of you as you sent all your wonderful texts about WrestleMania. Thought of you. So I was excited for it.
Yeah, so I watched night 2. I always watch on Sunday. I don't like that they split it into 2 nights now. It just makes it tough. But
bogus.
I do appreciate all the social media presence on a lot of big sports sites that are tweeting out about WrestleMania. But night 2 was very, very good. Yeah. What about you, Phil?
I did not watch any.
Really?
I didn't even watch highlights. I did see a picture of The Rock and Undertaker, but I don't know if that's because you sent it to me.
I did.
Okay.
Well, I'm disappointed. I'm not even a fan. I think I know more about WrestleMania than you right now. So
that is very true. That is true.
What NFL players showed up?
Javon Kinlaw. I'm just joking. I don't think he was there. Although
I
he
think
looks like he could be. He looks like he could be in WrestleMania.
Kittle was there again. Kittle's always there.
Did Kittle go on in the ring though?
No. Oh, you're talking in the ring.
Yeah. The guys that the surprise guest stars, whatever you want to call them.
Is it just
Lane
because George
Johnson.
Kittle has a mullet? Like, is that what it is?
It's a good
He's
question.
just a fan, He believes. And
Okay.
McAfee calls WrestleMania too.
Oh,
I think
does
he
he?
calls every SmackDown still as well.
What?
He does everything.
That's awesome. That guy's awesome.
Okay,
Hey, we
I'll
got to
give you
give
one-
a shout out to Carl. Oh, sorry, Frem. What did you want to say?
I was gonna give you one guess. Lane Johnson was one of the guys. Eagles offensive lineman. Who's the other guy?
Jason
Jalen?
Kelsey?
There you go. Good job,
Yeah.
Jason Kelce.
Jalen Hurts? Oh, Jason Kelsey.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a
you
good
said
pick.
Cool.
Former Eagle.
Rip.
That's true. Yeah. Okay, back to Carl.
Back to Carl. Okay, first of all, Carl, I'm sorry. I do kind of miss you. I wish you were here with us. I take back what I said prior. Carl got all of his predictions right on WrestleMania. Is that right, Chris? Every single one?
I think so. 99%
Proud of you,
sure.
Carl.
That's awesome. He literally should have put money on every single match. He would have won so much money. It's crazy.
He earned himself another spot on the show with that performance.
Way to earn it, Carl. What was your favorite part, Chris?
I just appreciate the nostalgia. So during the last match, we saw The Rock, Stone Cold, Undertaker. When they bring back people that I used to watch, that's what I enjoy. And every year someone comes back. That's why I watch.
Yeah, those characters are still like all iconic. That's what's like kind of cool about it. Like it's kind of transcended.
And I think the
couple
best part about
generation.
Yeah. The coolest part for me about wrestling too, it always has been, is just when the entrance music plays and you know exactly who's coming out. Like you can associate a person with 1.5 seconds of a clip. It's amazing.
By the way, Matty G texted me and said that Genesis by Justice would be a really good walkout song. So I will send it to you after this podcast, and you guys can listen to it.
Okay.
And let me know what you think. The
I
OG
trust-
EDM. Thank you,
trust in
Matty,
Matty
for the
G.
text. 100%. All right, well, let's transition to college basketball. Part of me hopes this is the last time we talk about college basketball for a while. Unless the Badgers do something crazy, we probably won't talk about it for a while. But it is worth recapping the Final Four. You had Purdue playing NC State. They win 63-50. You have UConn playing Alabama. Probably a better game. 86-72. I don't know if the scoreline does it full justice, but it was a good game. And then you had UConn. So you had UConn and Purdue matched up. Twin Towers of Zach Edey and Klingon. Is his first name Donovan?
Yeah.
It's a great
So.
name. Donovan Klingon.
Kling Kong.
Ooh, it's good. UConn unfortunately beats Purdue 75-60. What are your reaction to the games? Final Four, national title. What was your reaction to it all?
Yeah, I think I won our little bracket challenge picking UConn, but I think you're the one that said it, Chris, in our text. It was a boring tournament. I'm just gonna say that. I totally agree with that take. I don't think we saw enough madness really this time around, and yeah, I mean, when it came down to it, NC State really wasn't a matchup for Purdue, and then Purdue wasn't really a matchup at all for UConn. And I don't think we texted about Purdue's game plan. Don't know what they were doing there. No one else got involved. I mean, Edey scored whatever over 50% of Purdue's points, but yeah, UConn textbook. Just let Edey score and shut everyone else down. I think Matt Painter said in the post-game interview they ran off everyone from the three-point line, didn't let people shoot. They had 7 3-point attempts. Is what the lowest amount of 3-point makes. I think you texted out, Chris, that since Michigan and it was 92. that's wild to me. Just really bizarre, and I think some may say like it's good for the college game, seeing the excellence of UConn, but I don't know that kind of game. I think turns people away from watching the game. It's just boring, I think, and yeah, I kind of went to the X to confirm my opinion a bit of seeing who was texting about team's effort. I think that injury to Jamal Shed in Houston, I think that was critical, and I think Houston had to be probably the second best team. I just watching Purdue play, like Purdue defensively could not guard UConn, and then clearly they did not have the firepower to overcome UConn's defense. So there had to be, I think, another team. I think Houston is maybe that second best team that maybe would have made the game closer. I think UConn still wins. I think a lot of people agree like UConn was the best team out there. But yeah, just disappointing. I don't think it's good for college basketball when you're watching a really bad second half blowout. I was predicting if they don't let Edey score there late, UConn got in foul trouble. I was predicting like a 30-point some blowout there. Like it was for a second looking like it was going to get really bad. So
yeah, the tournament as a whole was just a little subpar this year. There's nothing you can do about it, just the way it is. I hope that the NIL and the portal don't lead to this trend of mid-majors just struggling to win games. I mean, without the Oakland win over Kentucky, this tournament was super chalky. That was kind of the one shining moment of the tournament. But just in terms of the Final Four, I was so impressed with how good UConn was. And I think this is the first time in this 2-year run where I actually started to appreciate how good they are. And beating Purdue the way they did, like you said, Frem, I mean, it was basically Braden Smith and Zach Edey. Like, I thought Purdue had more depth, but it didn't show at all in the game. And that surprised me. But UConn, Dan Hurley, maybe one of the most chaotic, crazy coaches, but he is really good at connecting with his players. And his game plans are beyond elite. I mean, what he did to just take Purdue out of their game was incredible. They're going to be hard to beat moving forward with just the way he coaches, with his energy, and he's going to get players that just want to come and play so freaking hard. And it shows. So, yeah, I'm impressed with UConn. They're going to lose a lot of guys again, but holy cow, I would have a hard time betting against them in the future too.
Yeah, I think the relentless nature of how they play is like, it is really, I think, awe-inspiring. I don't think I've seen that from college teams. Usually have lulls in games, and it's not like they never had that, but it never felt like they were in danger. I mean, even against Alabama, I think they hit 9 of 12 or 7 of 10. I mean, they started really hot from 3. And yeah, they were up, but doesn't seem like UConn was that worried. So
no.
I do think the Big Ten needs to look at the way that they recruit, especially guards. UConn, everybody's 6'4" or 6'5" and above, long length. Those small guards, Braden Smith, Lance Jones. You give credit to UConn; their game plan was really good. Give Edey his due. Let Edey do what he wants, and we're just going to shut down the 3, and it worked. And they ran Alabama off the 3-point line too pretty well. Purdue just didn't seem as ready. I didn't love, the way they play defense. Way too many easy baskets. I'm surprised they're not switching everything. Because you're giving up layup after layup on these pick and rolls. So that was surprising, but I just wonder, Purdue probably had to play a little bit harder against NC State because UConn just feels like the way they play is they're able to get up a lot and they can hold leads. They don't have to play with the same intensity or, try to get back into games. And NC State plays hard. So they gave everything for Purdue that all they're worth, just ran out of gas. But yeah, I'm like you. I mean, Dan Hurley's like, he's maniacal. He can be really obnoxious. And yet, if he was my coach, I would love him so much. So it's easy for me to be like, oh, he's annoying because I really didn't want UConn to win. but more so it is just impressive how good he is. And I mean, I think he is the face of college basketball now when it comes to coaches. I don't think it's a question. I don't think Calipari's that anymore. And it'll be interesting to see who rivals UConn, because I don't think Dan Hurley's going to leave. And I don't even think he goes to the NBA. I think he stays a college coach and he creates something special there for a long time.
That's a good take on the Big Ten, by the way. And it feels like through this run of not winning a championship since 2000, like there's been some good teams, but you're right about like just looking at pure size and athleticism, they don't seem to match up with the Blue Bloods or some of these teams in the Big East. The Pac-12 and the Big Ten are kind of similar in that sense.
That's a good call. Yeah. Ian Eagle, the play-by-play for CBS, called it out early in that first half. Said everyone made the hubbub all about the two towers, Klingon and Edey with the game, but the real big disparity is the height difference between UConn's guards and Purdue's guards, just like you're saying, Phil. So I think like Chris is saying, that's a great take right there of guys like Cam Spencer, Carbon, Castle, Tristan Newton. Like these guys are tall, right? They're long, they're tall. They can defend, they can shoot, and so it's tough when you have a bunch of players like that. I think that's the thing when you look at UConn on the floor, they're huge, and that's tough to shoot against, and I think it's tough to guard, and then it makes them that much better in defense. And I think going back, just looking at like how do you get a back-to-back national champion, it's really good defense. If you look back to how Florida played back in whatever 07, 08 there, with the wonderful Joakim Noah, great defense, right? They didn't always win pretty. They didn't always score a ton of points, but they just locked people down, and then they played aggressive and physical, and it was really hard to beat them. So I think that's one of those old adages that is true. Is defense does win championships, and especially when you get easy buckets as well, like you're saying, Phil. I think that's a great recipe, and I think it's a good take, Chris. Like, if there was a program to win 3 years in a row, I think it would be UConn right now. As much as I dislike saying that statement out loud, I would not be surprised if they bring in the Cam Spencers of the world, these guys that are good players on maybe lower level, like Pac-12, SEC, or even Big Ten teams, and they bring them in, right? So I would not be surprised if they bring in a really exciting class, and they're going to be a force to reckon with.
Do you want to talk about Cam Spencer? If you get a chance, go read you have a subscription to The Athletic. Go read the article about him and Dan Hurley. Cam Spencer is in essence Dan Hurley incarnate as a player. To the point that they both swear a ton. They're both like overtly competitive and intense. Like Cam Spencer, I think, pushed this team in a way that maybe you couldn't see it as you're watching, but if you read that article, you kind of realize like he's kind of a crazy person, so meticulous about the game, and he doesn't have the same athleticism or the same, skill as some of these other recruits, but just makes up for this kind of, kind of a maniacal drive. Let's talk about the dynasty or I should say the run that UConn's been on as a program, right? Because we have back-to-back titles here. All 12 wins by 13 plus points. I mean, that's pretty wild. UConn has won 6 of the last 25 national championships. Does anybody else realize that? All right, we talk Duke, we talk Kansas, we talk Kentucky, we talk Michigan State, Arizona. UConn is by far the most dominant in this period of time. 6 in the last 25 years. Are they a dynasty now?
I think just in the standards of college basketball, I would say yes. Going back to back, I think, is very rare in the college game. And especially, one may argue in this NIL format, right? So other teams can, stack their rosters, et cetera. And so, in this era, being able to win like this, I think you definitely could say it's a dynasty. And I think you got to look at, what we're talking about, like the point differential here. Like they're blowing people out. No one's even getting close. These aren't close games. There's no buzzer beaters here. They're just rolling teams and rolling what we think are good teams many times, right? Like Illinois, Purdue, just knocking them out without much doubt. And then a really hot Alabama team who beat some really quality programs. So, yeah, I think it's safe to say they're dynasty right now. And I think, yeah, it'll be interesting to see moving forward. So.
Yeah, I would say yes. I mean, I don't know of a better program. In fact, Dan Hurley made a quote or had a quote at the end of the game last night where he basically said, UConn's been running college basketball for the last 25 years. And it's funny because if like you went to a bar and did trivia and you said, who has the most national championships since, I don't know, whatever 25 years ago was, 1999.
Yep.
I wouldn't say Connecticut, and I don't know what that is because normally there's an East Coast bias. So they just kind of fly under the radar. But it's maybe because they have down years in between, like just kind of these odd stretches of not making the tournament or just not being competitive. But I don't see, like you said, Phil, he's definitely the best coach in college basketball right now. I don't see him leaving because he's an East Coast guy. So I would say yes. I think we're seeing something. Dan Hurley is a coach that he's kind of an old school coach in today's game, and it works. Like you don't see a lot of coaches with his fire and his passion and the way he gets on players. And maybe this is the start of a trend in some way of being a little bit tougher on players and getting more out of them. So I would say yes. And as much as I hate it, because there's nothing about UConn that I enjoy just from a fan standpoint. Like I have to appreciate it.
Yeah, dynasty is this weird word. I think when I hear dynasty, I think of New York Yankees in the 90s, Chicago Bulls with Jordan, what the Warriors have done with Steph Curry and Draymond and Clay. So I don't think they're a dynasty yet. They've obviously had a run of dominance here in these last 2 years. Obviously, over the last 25 seasons, 6 titles, bunch of different coaches, kind of weird circumstances. The one with Kevin Ollie was kind of out of nowhere. I think they need one more in the next 2 years, or at least a couple Final Fours. It's hard to win a national title. I don't know if they would need to win another national title for me to recognize them as that, actually. But they would need to get to at least one more Final Four in the next 1 or 2 years. And so I think they will become that. I really do. This was a completely different team than last year, and it didn't matter. Right? That's what's really different between like the Florida back-to-back. That was Noah and Corey Brewer and say it again? And Horford.
Yeah.
That was Horford. So they had that whole team for 2 years in a row. And this one's like, this is completely mostly new guys.
They lost 5 of their top 8 scorers from last year.
Yeah. That's what's actually even more impressive about it, I think. Is that they did it with 2 totally different squads for the most part. So I think it'll get there, but it's not there yet. But I think he's the face of college basketball. And he probably, it's interesting. I heard a story about Coach K. I guess Coach K during practice would swear, get on guys. And then when you watch him on the sidelines, super button up, doesn't swear. And Dan Hurley just is who he is. Take him or leave him. And it feels like he'll kind of be that guy that you either love him or you hate him. And I don't think there's going to be an in-between with him. Speaking of big coaches, Calipari leaves Kentucky for Arkansas. That broke, I want to say, Sunday night at 11 p.m. 12 p.m. They're probably there, midnight there. Pretty big deal. Move within the SEC. He's getting, I think, $15 million a year. Is that right? Or is it $8 million a year? Yeah, it's $8 million a year. $5 million in NIL money for the budget yearly. Pretty significant, right? So he replaces Eric Musselman, former Nevada coach who went over to USC. Who do you think is the next coach for Kentucky? Yeah, let's throw it out there.
It's a great question. I don't know if I have an answer to that right now off the top of my head. Yeah, I can't imagine, like a Nate Oates or somebody. I can't imagine him leaving Alabama within the SEC. Yeah, that's a great one. I would imagine they would probably find one of these guys that are up and coming from maybe one of these smaller schools. But it is Kentucky, right? So there's even rumors saying, is Hurley going to go to Kentucky? There's even the UConn athletic director is being interviewed about that. Could Hurley just jump ship and go? Which I don't think he will, given what he's just done in UConn and some roots to the Northeast that he has there. So yeah, I don't know if I have an answer to it. To me, it's just an interesting move. It makes me think that Kentucky or Coach Cal something soured there, and then he's jumping ship and finding a different opportunity. They've come up short lately, and I think people are looking at his track record. They're only one national championship with all those amazing recruits. Guys like John Wall and Anthony Davis. Yeah, the list goes on and on. They've had a lot of really talented basketball players. Devin Booker. All these guys have been through their program, and yet they've still, Karl Anthony Towns, right? So just, you kind of head scratcher, right? So after with all those players, all this great NBA talent, only one national championship. So it kind of does beg the question. You're talking about like best college basketball coaches. Like, is he really that good? He's been given amazing talent, and yet he has. I think how people look at you is do you win? Probably has a good winning percentage if you look it up in the books, but I think those championships are a pretty big deal in college basketball.
Yeah, it's such an fascinating story. It's something that I kind of thought was going to happen. I didn't think it was going to happen this year. I was listening to like this Kentucky radio guy, and he was basically saying at this point after this season, he said about 60% of fans wanted him gone, and about 20% were indifferent. So it didn't leave a lot of loyal backers at this point in terms of where Calipari was. And I think, Frem, to your point, I think I heard that he sent 50 players to the NBA that have been drafted in the NBA in 18 years, and it's just insane. But I think the next coach is going to be Scott Drew. I've been reading a little bit that the AD and him have a relationship. Scott Drew won a national championship at Baylor. I don't think you can do much more at Baylor. I think he's kind of peaked what he can do with the resources that they have. I think he can come to Kentucky, have this sort of unlimited budget. He's a coach that players love to play for. He's well respected. He's not going to do anything stupid. He doesn't fit the crazy Big Blue Nation culture, but I think they need someone to stabilize right now, and he's going to come in and make them a consistent top 10 team every year. So I'll go Scott Drew.
Yeah, Scott Drew would be cool. In Baylor, you forget how they had a really good stretch in there, and even this year, good team, just, couldn't make it as far. So that name is definitely possible. Like you said, stability. That would bring stability 100%. The one I'm kind of interested in, because he's at Ole Miss right now, is Chris Beard. Chris Beard is really good at tech, went to Texas, and then he just did something stupid, and I can't remember exactly what he got reprimanded for and fired for. But he actually, I think, has the credentials. It's a matter of, is he past kind of his infraction that he did? He would bring a lot of energy to that program, and it seems like he's a guy that really does love the X's and O's, and then players also love playing for him. But yeah, it is one of these things, Brian, like you bring up. It's like, man, it could be so many different names, and I think, Billy Donovan's been brought up too. And, if you look at the odds, I think he's like plus 200 to go there. That's really interesting. He's on the Bulls right now, and the Bulls are a horrible run organization, unfortunately. And it's one of those where, could he make the jump back and be successful? He could. But this is an 07, 08. You know, I mean, when he was coach at Florida, he was kind of the hot commodity. Really, really good coach. Really strong coach. But college basketball's changed so much in the last 10 to 15 years. And I think NIL will probably get under control in the next 3 or 4. But yeah, does he want to enter into that? Totally different landscape than the NBA. So I'm with you, Chris. I think Scott Drew, but there could be some other names out there, Chris Beard or one of these mid-major. But yeah, I think it was a good run for Coach Cal. I think he's there for 15 years, long time, maybe a couple less. I mean, multiple Final Fours. I wouldn't say he was a failure there. I know some people I know from you made that point. I don't know if he's a failure. It's hard to win national titles.
I think they said he made the Elite Eight. I think like 60% of the years he was there, or something like that.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
He's 17th all time on winning percentage. So like the guy is legendary. Don't get me wrong. I think this environment though, there's a ton of pressure though to win and deliver. Yeah. So
especially at Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Especially at Kentucky. Looking at the list, Billy Donovan does stick out. I think that would make maybe the most sense if you're going to a NBA-driven program, coach coming from the NBA saying, "Hey, like I'm going to help you, get to the NBA." I've said it before. I'll say it again. It's going to come down to who's the best recruiter. Is Scott Drew the best recruiter in this environment? Is Billy Donovan the best recruiter? I mean, guys like Sean Miller, I think that would be an easy transition for him. I don't think he's going to love his job at Xavier. Rick Pitino's name is out there, but can Rick Pitino recruit? And I mean, guys like Sean Miller, Pitino, they've had like scandals attached to them. So like, are they really the guy you want to be the face of your program? But hey, Coach Cal's had scandals attached to his name too, and he was the face of Kentucky. So I don't know if people really care at Kentucky. I think they just want to win. So whoever's going to be that guy, if I had to say out of that list, Billy Donovan does make the most sense because that, like you said, Phil, that Bulls team is going nowhere fast. So why wouldn't you take over one of the powerhouse college basketball programs and do that versus being on a struggling NBA team? If you're asking me. So,
well, I don't like that guy. So I'm kind of hoping they don't do well at Arkansas, but I feel bad for Arkansas. They have like good years, nothing sustainable though. Anyway, that might be the last time we talk about college basketball for a while. We'll see what happens in the transfer portal. There probably will be a coaching carousel, especially if Scott Drew leaves. So maybe that is something we touch back onto. But let's talk Major League Baseball. I think we're 11 games in. Our fantasy fortunes are all over the place on this pod. I'm playing From right now. It's not looking good for me. It's okay. We're not going to get into that.
Tuesday.
It's all good.
It is Tuesday.
Only Tuesday.
But,
okay.
When you hit 190 the first 2 days, you're not feeling great about life. Let's get into some kind of general baseball questions though, just overlooking all of MLB. Again, MLB TV, T-Mobile Tuesdays. I think you can still get it. You should do that if you have T-Mobile. They're not paying us for that promotion.
Oh, they're not.
What team? They should. What team to you guys has been the most surprising so far?
Yeah, I'm just gonna pulling up some of these standings here. I think a team right now, I think it's pretty obvious. I don't think anyone expected them to be the top of the NL Central. I mean, the Pittsburgh Pirates are 9-3 right now. I have to imagine that's a bluff. I have to imagine maybe they just, some good luck playing some bad teams. They're starting pitching, Jared Jones. I mean, they have some guys, right? You look at that roster. You got, they plug back McCutchen in. They have some vets. They have some young talent there. Brian Hayes, etc. So who knows? That's weird. Very weird. I think I don't think anyone expected the Marlins to be 1-11, but I think that the team that I think Chris had them, the Seattle Mariners are 4-8 right now, and just getting blown up. I think George Kirby got blown up. Castillo's gotten hit around a bit. I don't think anyone expected them to be play this poorly early on. So I think that's a team that stood out right now. And then just highlighting the misery of both your fantasy baseball teams. I think the hot button issue right now is Tommy John, right? And pitchers just can't stay healthy in this environment. And what's going on? I read an article about that from CBS, and yeah, it's just it's the pitching clock. Is it right? They're not allowing as many pitching changes, enough visits to the mound. Um, yeah, making these games go faster, etc. So yeah, are these things? They've changed the ball on pitchers. They've changed their ability to what substance they can use on the ball or their hands, whatnot. So yeah, I think all these things just beg the question of like, has the MLB really shifted to make injuries more likely for pitchers right now, and is that good for the game? And are we going to even see more Tommy John moving forward? Just because pitchers are overexerting themselves or etc. All these factors are adding up. So it's not fun seeing guys like Spencer Strider and Shane Bieber go out early on in the year. We're just seeing a lot of guys hit the IL, and that's not good for the game. That's not good for our fantasy teams, obviously. Not good for players' health. So, yeah, curious to see if there's any response to that.
I'm just going to tackle the whole MLB portion in one take here.
Yeah, you just went all in. You went all in.
I did.
I don't hate. My surprise, even though it may not seem like a surprise on the surface, is the Yankees. And the Yankees are 10-2, and their rotation doesn't have Garrett Cole right now. I mean, their rotation is Nestor Cortez, Carlos Rodon, Marcus Stroman, Clark Schmidt, and Lucas Gill. And it's just not something that concerns you when you look at that on paper. But their offense is just clicking. Phil, you nailed it with Juan Soto. I mean, he's on pace to win the MVP. We're 10 games in, or 12 games, but he looks the best that he ever has. And guys like Anthony Volpe are starting to come into form. Like that lineup is really scary good. So the Yankees they're a team that I sort of dismissed, right? I've been all in on Baltimore. I still like Toronto. Tampa Bay is always there. Yankees are kind of the team that I was kind of overlooking, and I'll take the early L on that. But we all know it's baseball, and anything can change. The team that I'm most disappointed in at this point is the Twins, and it's because the guys that we need to stay healthy aren't staying healthy, and we are literally 10 games into the season. So that really disappoints me. I thought Royce Lewis had a chance to be an MVP candidate, and again he's hurt. It's like, come on, man.
Game one.
That's awful.
Yeah, and of course he was off to a good start too. He had like a triple or whatever, and whatever. So those are the two that kind of stand out from top to bottom. In terms of what I'm watching moving forward is what happens with the NL Central. Because NL Central, all the teams are playing well right now. I guess I did discredit the Brewers. I thought that they would take a step back, but they're still as annoying as always and winning close games.
Pesky.
Doing what they do. Pesky, yeah. But the Reds look good. The Cardinals look better than I thought. Thought they'd start slow and then get below 500 and never get back. And the Cubs are playing well. So it's a good division, so that's one that I want to see how that shakes out over the next month here.
Yeah, crazy. 12 games in, everyone's 500 or above. That's weird.
For a division that no one thought was going to be good.
Correct. Yeah.
It's early, but it's just kind of an interesting trend. Some of these teams are playing really good teams, too. Schedules have been tough.
Yep.
Yeah, I think for me, like Frem, I think it's the Pirates just because it's fun. You know, Brian Reynolds, Brian Hayes, Henry Davis, Jack Sawinski, Jared Jones coming out of nowhere and being a pretty good pitcher, 22 years old. They always seem to play well in April, so, you take it with a grain of salt with them. But, Pirates are kind of one of those classic franchises that, just been in the dumps for the last, 20, 30 years. And I kind of root for them, even if they're in the Central, just because, man, I want to see them rival the Cardinals and the Reds and the Brewers. And so it's like, I think that's where it's been kind of fun to see that. Disappointment, Mariners. I don't think it's close for me. Nobody is hitting well on that team. If you go look at their collective team average is pretty horrible. If you just go on ESPN and kind of look at like one game of stats, you can kind of see their averages for the year, and it's most of them are 200 and under. I mean, it's crazy. It's just a complete, I don't know if it's shell shock of a new team or just bad start to the year. They do seem to be more of a second half team. That's what they've shown the last couple of years. And then the Astros. That's the other disappointing one. Lots of pitching injuries. I get that. But they're 4-8, I think, to start. And they're the ones that seem to have a lot of the pieces. A lot of the pieces that have been there. Pitching injuries, I think, has really hurt them for sure. But Josh Hader hasn't pitched well to start for them. So I think those are the two teams, again, both AL West. If you look at the AL West right now, the Angels are currently in first place of the AL West. So
will not stand.
Baseball's weird. We know. We know things will change. But those are the two things. And then I think, like Frem, I think the storyline that I think baseball is going to look at, not just us, but baseball, is the pitcher injuries. And you just had this really weird thing come out where the MLBPA, in essence, was like, oh, this pitching clock is the thing that's causing these injuries. And then you have MLB come out and say, no, it's because of all of these pitching changes in the organization where they're trying to get better spin rate, more velocity. That is what's causing it. And I think it's just a fascinating thing, right? Again, like Friend brought up, Strider, Bieber. You're seeing all these other injuries. And again, maybe we're just kind of a prisoner of the moment. I'd be curious to look at some stats around that over the last 10 years and see through that. But it just does feel like to be a lot. And I think what these pitching labs have done have created more velocity, have created more spin rate. And so these pitchers can throw it nasty. I mean, it's awesome to watch. But it feels like almost everybody's going to get Tommy John at least once. And then are you going to have it again? Are you going to have elbow issues again? Is it going to be lingering? And to me, I actually do think the MLB's right. I really do. You put more torque and more action on the arm, you're going to have more injuries over time. So I know it's a little bit of a Debbie Downer, but I think it's just interesting it's interesting to watch it. It's interesting to see it. And for a lot of us that, listen to this, we've been watching baseball 10, 20 years, and it's never been this many. And so pretty interesting. I think looking at the divisions, like you guys talked about, the NL Central currently looks like the best division in baseball. Again, a lot can change, but pretty fun to see that. And then the NL West looks like it's just not playing well to start. You thought the Giants would be better. You thought the Diamondbacks would be better. The Padres really should be 5-8 and not 6-7. If you're a Cubs fan, you living that last night. It's so brutal. Of course, the Rockies suck, but it's one of these where, like, you thought these teams would be better. And granted, we're only 10, 11 games in, but it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out over the next 2 months, because that usually when it starts to kind of shake out, you kind of see the trends. But yeah, it should be kind of interesting moving forward. Any last thoughts on MLB before we pivot?
I think it'd be really interesting. Yeah, another division interesting here. Yeah, AL Central. I think that I would have pegged this to be the worst division maybe in baseball, right there with the NL Central. And you got Guardians, Tigers, Royals all playing some pretty good baseball right there. And you got teams like the Tigers and Royals that I don't think anyone is really. And I think did both of you pick the Tigers?
Phil's our guy.
Phil's your guy. Yeah. So maybe you're high on them and saw this coming, but yeah, I don't think a lot of people would have said that this division would have had some good teams. The Twins are in fourth place, so and it's fascinating. A lot of things can change, obviously, but it is just. I think it would be good for baseball to see some different teams, rally some different fan bases and whatnot. Be good, so get some different parity.
Yeah, it'll be better when the weather gets warmer. The first month is such a wild card. It's hard to look into it, but once you hit May, June, July, weather gets warmer. Things change traditionally more to what you think's going to happen.
Prospects get called up. We can't end the segment without talking about Jackson Holiday. I don't know if you guys want to go into that a little bit, but yeah, that is exciting. Prospects coming up, young studs, Wyatt Langford. I don't know. What do you think, Chris?
I love them both. I mean, they're on my team. Jackson Holiday is going to be a stud. So I picked Wyatt Langford to win Rookie of the Year. Had I known Holiday would be up by this point, that would have easily been my pick.
It's Matt Holiday's son, for any baseball nerds, baseball people out there. Yeah, just enjoy it. Baseball's so fun to watch. It's so fun to follow. If you don't play fantasy baseball, you should do it. It is way more fun than fantasy football. And we could maybe talk about that in a future podcast because it truly is better. It's way more fun. Let's pivot to our favorite league. No, it's not. The NBA, the National Basketball Association. We have not talked about this one time. We might have referenced Maddie and the Bucks, maybe, but we have not talked about it. And we thought it would be worth asking and for us talking about, do we watch it? Do you guys care about the NBA? Yes, no, maybe so, maybe not.
Well, for me, I'll just, a little origin story. I mean, I grew up, so I was, a little too young to really remember that last Jordan game there with the Bulls so clearly. But I remember the Spurs being dominant, beating the Knicks, falling in love with Reggie Miller, Allen Iverson, Vince Carter, that era, Shaq, Kobe. And so definitely watched a lot of it growing up. It's kind of waned on me over time at different points in time. And I think many people have said it, I think, over the last decade, the regular season products become hard to watch. I'll just say that. And it's been interesting to even just, talk with you guys and learn kind of how the NBA is trying to change the game mid-season still. When the playoffs roll around, I think it's a great product to watch. I think that's when you see players really try. I think you see people go all out. I think you get the best of these NBA stars. So, and Milwaukee having a really competitive team here the last, 7-8 years right now. I think it's been a lot of fun to watch and kind of ride along with this whole Giannis, Dame train and whatnot in Milwaukee. So definitely keep tabs on it and then really tune in for me in the postseason. But I definitely get the sentiment. The regular season product is difficult to digest many times, and there's just sometimes it feels like the grit and just kind of like, players used to play all 82 games and now it's load management and players sit out and it seems like a lot of players take plays off. But the postseason is legit, I'd say.
Yeah, so when I was growing up, I was obsessed with the NBA. Loved it. Loved the product. I remember where I was when Jordan hit the shot against Utah. I mean, like, I was all in. Like you said, the product is really good. I think it's also just part of being younger and associating and with certain players. But as time went on, I just kind of grew apart from it. It's the load management, but it's just the way the game has changed. There isn't a lot of defense that's played, especially in the regular season. I was just looking just randomly tonight. Like pretty much every team's in action tonight, and the team that won with the lowest score tonight was at 104. And the highest was like 145. It's a completely different game. And I think the reason I like college basketball better is because to me, it's just more pure. Like the players aren't better. They're not more athletic. They're not better shooters, but it just feels like they're playing as hard as they can every night. And I don't like the NBA from the standpoint of, like, for example, our DeForest FBLA chapter went to a Bucks game a month ago, and they didn't know until like 30 minutes before tip that Giannis wasn't going to play. So like those things disappoint me from the fan standpoint. But I grew up a huge Supersonics fan. That was my team. I was never really a big Bucks fan. So I think them going away kind of hurt me deep inside too. But no, I don't really watch the NBA. Once it gets to the playoffs, I'll tune in, especially as it gets closer to like the conference finals and the NBA finals. But first couple rounds, if I catch it, fine. Otherwise, I'll pass.
Yeah, it's funny. Carl, the first time I met him Chris told him that I watched the NBA, and he's like, "Oh, so I hear you watch the NBA." He really, really challenged me on that, and then we became fast friends since. I do like it. I am a Bulls fan, and I brought them up earlier in the show. They are the most, they're a horribly run organization, and so it can be fun. Really good talent, really good players. It's not as pure. They don't play as hard every night. The playoffs are really good, right? The playoffs are worth watching. I live in Denver, so I'm kind of in the era of the Joker and this kind of like up and coming Nuggets team. I shouldn't say up and coming. They're here. They've arrived, and so it's been fun to, I think, follow. Do I watch a lot? No, but part is I watch a lot of other sports. But my wife Emily did say to me the other day, we should watch more sports, specifically the NBA, the Nuggets. And whenever my wife is telling me to watch more sports, it's a win. So yeah, it is interesting. It's just different than college basketball. So I'll always love college more, but the NBA has its place. But again, it's almost more in the playoffs, similar to like the NHL or something like that. But okay, we're all roughly 35, somewhere in there. What is your favorite NBA player of all time? The one that you just loved either growing up or somebody you kind of look back fondly on and talk about why.
Yeah, I'd like to say it was a Milwaukee Buck. I definitely love the days of Big Dog Robinson, Sam Cassell, Ray Allen. The guy that I just like, he always just played like with his hair on fire. Reggie Miller. I just always loved his game, and he was kind of I think maybe ahead of his time. With all his 3-point shots. In his era, but yeah, I just loved his energy, just loved his passion, and I was too young to totally remember those Spike Lee days, but just like he just wild, talented, and just wasn't afraid to mix it up with people, and just a really I mean, he's one of the guys who you could argue really pushed Jordan at Jordan's peak, and was able to really compete and almost knock the Chicago Bulls off in one of those conference championships. So yeah, Reggie Miller was the guy, even though he burned the Bucks many times. Looking back.
So I have 3, and I want to give them all love. So I'm going to shout them all out. It was Penny Hardaway, Gary Payton, and Glenn Rice. And I don't really have a true backstory on how I came to love them all. But I remember being obsessed with their sports cards. Like I would get as many of them as I could. And then playing NBA Jam, I would always make sure I was one of those players. So I like the point guards. I was a point guard, so that's how I associate with the two. But Glenn Rice was just an absolute stud that I think is sort of underrated in the world of NBA.
Yeah, I played for the Charlotte Hornets. It was overlooked. I think you're right. My neighbor was obsessed with Glenn Rice growing up.
Love it.
So that's how I kind of knew about him, at least a little bit more. Yeah, I think for me, it's funny that friend brought up Joakim Noah earlier in the show. As a Bulls fan, I love that guy. He was all grit, all determination. Not like the most skilled, for sure, but just a monster defensively. And he was that guy on my team that everybody hated, but I loved. So in those teams, the Bulls post Jordan, when I was in Whitewater, shout out to Nate Mazur, who was also a Bulls fan, and this was Derrick Rose, Luol Deng. It was a team that it felt like could get to the finals, and then Derrick Rose got hurt. So just never got there, but Joakim Noah always stood out to me. I think it's just, this is such a weird question. I don't feel like I have this is the guy I love, but man, watching or being in Denver and watching the Joker, watching Jokic play, it is the most fascinating player to watch. If you're not an NBA fan or you don't watch a lot of NBA, try to catch a Nuggets game at some point and just watch the Joker play. It looks like he's so unathletic. He never is moving that fast. He doesn't have any highlights practically. Like if you're looking for ESPN highlight reel, you're not going to find it. He just plays almost perfect basketball. and it
Yeah.
is so fun to watch. I think over the next 5 to 10 years, he will be kind of that all-time player for me because it's kind of like a golden age of Nuggets basketball, and I'm like in it right now, and know a lot of people that watch it, and try to watch as much as I can, especially the Joker, because he really is that interesting of a player. It's just there's nobody really like him, honestly, and it's pretty fun to watch it.
Is Joker guy still a thing?
I don't think so. I don't think so. If you subscribe to The Athletic, just look up The Athletic Joker guy.
Man,
I bet it'll come out. It was an article from like 4 years ago.
We saw him.
that's funny.
Yes,
I
we
watched
did.
him more than the game. Just call
Yeah.
it what it is.
Yeah.
Yes.
The
It's a
brand
guy
of
who he used to go to like almost all the Nuggets games dressed up as the Joker.
that's funny.
And he was all in on the game.
That's great.
Just loved it.
The brand of Jokic, like you're saying, Phil, like I've watched be able to catch a game. Like it's not exciting, but the 2-man game he has with Jamal Murray is almost unguardable, and then they have shooters around him. As much as I'd love to say like Giannis is like the best player in the NBA, Jokic is, and he's basically unguardable because he can shoot from anywhere on the court with accuracy. He can shoot over top of you at any weird angle, off balance. He's huge. He can post you up. He can pass. He can shoot. He's a generational player, and I think because he's international, there's probably a bias. Like we don't maybe give him enough love or attention, or know his backstory. But he's really good. I could see them winning 2, 3, 4 different NBA championships in Denver. He's a special player, and I think a lot of teams are going to keep throwing darts in in Europe somewhere trying to find guys like him because he will change your whole organization.
All the best players are international.
Mm-hmm.
And that should be telling AAU, college basketball, that should be telling them something about what they're trying to teach kids in terms of how to play the game, the IQ of the game. All these international players have better IQs in terms of basketball. They play smarter. They might be more athletic, like the Greek Freak or Embiid, but they're better basketball players. They understand the game, I think, a little bit better than a lot of American players. Favorite to win the title? Who do you think is going to win it this year?
I like the Nuggets still. I think they're extremely hard to beat. I know the T-Wolves have come on and Shy with the Thunder there. Can never get his whole name down, but there's some up-and-coming teams in the NBA, but the Nuggets are by far just a really sound team. So I expect them to be in the finals. And honestly, I don't think the East really has a team to light a candle next to the Nuggets. If in all honesty, even the Bucks, I don't think anyone can really beat. Watching how the Nuggets play and how they win, and Jokic would have to get injured. If he gets injured, sure they won't be in the finals. But I expect the Nuggets to go back to back here.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Celtics. And my logic is I think they make it to the finals. I think they're the best team in the East. And I think the West is just going to beat up on each other. I mean, the West 1 to 10 is insane when it comes to, like, I could name 7 of those teams that have a realistic shot to come through in the West. You're right about the Nuggets. Once it comes down to it, they're going to be really good. I think that about the Lakers, too. But I think the Celtics have the easiest path to get to the finals. They focus on getting better depth this year, getting Jrue Holiday, a guy that knows how to win in the playoffs. I mean, they would be my betting favorite to win the title at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you, Chris. I think it's the Celtics' year, and I think they finally kind of get the monkey off their back. And they've gotten weird criticism. I think way too much. And I don't always understand that. Weird expectations, maybe. I think it's their year, though, and I think your take on the West is probably right. Like they will beat up on each other. A lot of these series will go 6 or 7, or whatever the maximum amount is, because these teams are pretty even. If you look at the standings, it's just wild. And the Lakers, unfortunately, are 20-8 in their last 28, and they're coming on. I think they're the 9th. So it's crazy. I mean. Yeah, you have a young Thunder team who's 1 or 2 in the standings, and they could easily bow out first round, and it's not because they're not talented. They just don't have the experience in the same way, and you need that in the NBA. It's one of these weird things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, if Kristaps Porzingis stays healthy, I think he could guard Joker
So
in the
good.
finals, and that would be a very interesting matchup to watch Porzingis and Joker go toe to toe. And then I think, like you're saying, Chris, I think it would be interesting because I think Holiday on the perimeter, Tatum, I think they would, Jaylen Brown, I think they would be able to match up pretty well against the Nuggets. It would be a great finals if those two teams played because, the Celtics do have the depth. But yeah, everyone's got to stay healthy. I still, that the chemistry, I will say, of the Nuggets, I still would rank higher than the Celtics. The chemistry that they just get, Jamal Murray and Joker are just, they're on another wavelength playing.
Well, hey, playoffs are soon, so go watch some NBA soon. And the playing games are good. I think you have I don't know exactly how it works. I don't know exactly the format, but those games with the 7 through 10 seeds are pretty good. They've come down to the wire since they've kind of implemented that system. So go watch it when it comes on. Let's transition to some golf. Also, something we've never talked about. And we could talk about Live Tour versus PGA, combination, merge, whatever. We don't care about that. I guess we're going to be in with the Saudi money. No big deal. But what's coming up is the Masters. So I'll just ask you guys, do you get the hype? Do you buy into the hype?
As a semi fair weather golf fan who kind of checks in every once in a while, I think the Masters is pretty special, right? People compare it to the Daytona Super Bowl of golf. I think there's definitely some this nostalgia, or even just kind of this it's a big deal, the green jacket. I think a lot of people that are sports fans kind of at least know enough about it, hear about Augusta, etc. And I think the crazy thing is just you have guys come out of the woodwork that have never won and they'll win the Masters. So I think that's kind of the really cool part about it, is these Cinderella stories that you see in golf, even if you're not a golf fan, just to kind of tune in and see if somebody comes out of nowhere and wins it all.
I always watch the Masters. I think it's just the tradition. Like, that is the one golf event I'll watch. But I will say, golf does have an identity crisis problem. Like, they just don't have a lot of marketable players right now. They're still relying on Tiger Woods coming back and playing, and selling that, even though he's not going to do anything. But I think that's what does it for me. I mean, just when you grew up and when things happen is when you associate. And Tiger Woods was so good when we were growing up. And I just remember when he won the Masters by 20 strokes or something. When he won it again a couple years ago was one of the coolest events I've ever seen in sports in my lifetime. I watch it. I think it's good. And like Brian said, it'd be a cool event to attend. You can't have your phone. They take that before you even go in. It's probably just a super old school vibe where you just kind of go back in time for a little while.
Yeah.
I used to watch a lot of golf growing up. Tiger, I played, and so I was kind of into it. Don't really play anymore. Understands who some of the golfers are, but they don't have those huge names anymore, really. There are really good players, obviously, but just not the same. I think a lot of the hype comes from Jim Nantz, which is weird to say, but I mean, Jim Nantz's voice and how he talked about the Masters, and he's just so iconic. And so I think he kind of is the one that creates that a little bit. I mean, the golf does too, for sure. And like you said, Chris, the old school nature of it. But yeah, I think Jim Nantz, he's just that good, and he's just that good at calling it. He kind of has all these kind of trope calls, almost like the commercials leading up to the Masters that I remember. And so, yeah, I that's, I think, what it kind of creates the hype, honestly.
It's a great take.
But yeah. But Masters moments, though, you talk about Tiger, Tiger in red.
Yeah.
Tiger wearing the red shirt.
Sunday
Sunday
Red.
That's what I'll always remember. I remember when Marco Mira won it all. I think he hit a. I actually remember his last putt, and that was like a pretty big accomplishment for him. And then, of course, you just remember the green jacket. You know, it's like it is that iconic. I won't watch a lot, but I will follow it, see what happens, and I mean the green jacket is still, I think, is special in the game.
Yeah, I will say that so the marketable piece, what like NASCAR did, I think what Full Speed, they had Netflix. Golf's done Full Swing now, 2 seasons of it. If you want to get into golf and like figure out like the personalities of people, like Rory McIlroy and they have Rahm Shuffler, like some of their top golfers right now. Go watch it. I think it's really interesting. I mean, you get kind of these like Brooks Koepka. I mean, not necessarily the most likable guy in the world. They lay out their personalities and their backdrops and kind of like what makes them tick and how frustrated they get and just kind of their family lives and whatnot. And so I think it's like, I think you said, Chris, about NASCAR, like once you kind of know the story behind it and the drama and some of these like storylines to it, I think then you can get into it more. So that's I think something to consider if you're looking at watching a little more golf, is learning more through that story kind of platform.
All right, we've been across the totality of sports. Oh, it comes back to totality. We've talked about a lot of things. We have more sports for you. We are maybe going to talk about some other things, but we're a little bit late on time. So I think we'll save that for next week. Next week we will also have some NFL draft stuff. This is coming up in a couple weeks here. So we'll be talking about that some. Let's just finish off. If you were to attend a sporting event at some point in your life that you haven't been to yet, what would it be?
Great question. I'm going to go with, I think the Super Bowl is too cliche. I'm going to go, if it's a Game 7 World Series. I think that would be really sweet. A Game 7 World Series. Baseball, yeah, in the fall, the weather, ideally you're in an outside game. Yeah, I think that'd be really special to see a Game 7 World Series.
That was the exact thing I was going to say, Fred. It pains me deep down. I didn't have a backup
That's
ready.
okay. You can just say Game 7. That's okay.
If I had to pick a backup, though, I would say if the Badgers ever made it back to the national championship, basketball, I would not miss it.
I'm just gonna say though, my issue, and they've said this recently, and there's an article out now about like these sports arenas. Like I know they're packing more fans in, but
yeah, it's stupid.
It's goofy. Like that's yeah. It's not fun to watch. I've been in one.
Well, I guess I'll be cliche according to Frem, but I really want to go to a Super Bowl. I just want to experience the week. Like the game, yeah, the game would be cool. See the halftime show. That would be iconic. That'd be cool. But I would only really want to go, I think, if the Packers were in it. Like, I don't think I would want to go. Like, if I got free tickets or got cheap tickets or something, that's one thing. But I think it's just because of the buildup of it. I think that'd be really fun. And I think they're doing more interaction stuff with players, and it feels like they're trying to incorporate that more in. And so, yeah, I just think it'd be cool. But yeah, right, Game 7, World Series. Yeah. What do you got? What else you got?
I'm going to backtrack because I felt panicked and I just spouted it out. I want to see Duke, Carolina at Cameron Indoor. I think that would be amazing.
In the John Shire era.
Right. Because that place holds, what, like 3,000 people?
It's not a lot.
That'd be wild.
Like just to see, like you said, how that all plays out over the course of a couple days. And
Ooh, yeah. This gets into like what sports arena do you want to watch a game in? I think that's
we'll get that later. I like that.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, hey, good to be back with all of you. Thanks for listening. If you listened to the full 2-hour podcast last week, you are a true fan of the Man Sports Fan podcast. Tell us how we're doing. Give us feedback. Ask questions. We love you all. Thank you for listening. We'll see you guys next week.
Love you, Carl.
Godspeed.